It's Wednesday night.
The New York Theater Barn
is live!
Good evening. I'm Victoria Carroll, a member of the advisory board at New York Theater Barn. I'm also a marketing strategist, entrepreneur, writer, and a partner at Broadway Wine Club. Tonight, we at Broadway Wine Club are proud to support New York Theater Barn with its A Seat at the Table panel event for women in theater. Broadway Wine Club was founded by a team of wine and theater professionals who are passionate about bringing these two communities together. The Broadway Wine Club offers members exclusive small batch vintages from the best wineries that can't be found anywhere else. One of my favorite parts of Broadway Wine Club is that on top of all that great wine, you also get access to virtual invitation-only wine tasting events where you'll meet award-winning theater makers, winemakers, and be treated to intimate performances by some of Broadway's best talents. We can't wait to see you in person soon, but until then, Broadway Wine Club is going to bring you two of my favorite things, theater and wine. I'm going to show you a few of my favorite Broadway Wine Club wines, so you can get a sneak peek taste of what you may have in store. On the left, we have La Source. It's our current flagship bottle and one of the most sought after Pinot Noirs in the US. And to the right, Ghostlight, an earthy and bold Cabernet Syrah with notes of black cherry. This wine takes its name from the single lamp that illuminates all darkened theaters. There will also be more custom show wines to come. You can grab a bottle of Jagged Little Pill wine on our site right now. The theater world is all about community. So tonight, we at Broadway Wine Club are giving you a special offer. Simply go to BroadwayWineClub.com and use code BARNWINE. Not only will you get a secret discount of 10% off, but $10 for every membership goes to support New York Theater Barn and to keep all of their programs going. Thank you for taking a moment with me tonight. I so look forward to when we can all be doing this together again in person and when we can all return to the theater safely. So sit back, relax, maybe enjoy a glass of wine, and let's get on with the show. Cheers.
Good evening. I'm Joe Barros, and I'm the proud artistic director of New York Theater Barn. Welcome to tonight's special presentation. Traditionally, this is the time where I welcome you and tell you more about New York Theater Barn and what to expect tonight. But since tonight is about the women in the theater industry, I wanted to make space for the women in our community and organization. But first, I wanted to say that New York Theater Barn stands in solidarity with the AAPI community. There has been a horrific and heartbreaking surge in violence against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders around the United States over the past year, and most recently last week. Asian stereotypes perpetuate hate and are so harmful that they are resulting in the murders of innocent people. Asian Americans are part of our country's plurality. Together, it is our responsibility to condemn this hate and celebrate Asian joy, Asian artists, and Asian communities in abundance. It is no longer enough to be an ally or anti-racist. We must be abolitionists if we want to make impactful change. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce you to the women of New York Theater Barn.
For the past 14 years, New York Theater Barn has created a home for original, culture-shifting musicals during incubation.
In the midst of a global pandemic, the company has pivoted evolving our programming and storytelling systems to continue supporting artists and the development of new musicals.
The experience has been productive, meaningful, and has connected so many artists and audiences from all over the world.
Over the past year, a global pandemic and systemic reckoning has given us the unique opportunity to empower artists, lift up culture-shifting stories, support our community, and make musical theater development the most accessible it's ever been for both artists and audiences.
For the past tumultuous year, New York Theater Barn has presented 82 new musicals, lifted up the work of 142 writers, and served over 400 artists.
Our company's live virtual programming was recognized by the National Alliance for Musical Theater's Innovation and Exploration Fund.
Our company launched the Digital Fund for New Musicals and initiatives to support projects that thrive at the intersection between theater and film, with our friends Broadway Virtual and Broadway On Demand.
Our company also launched Theater Barn Records, a new imprint of Broadway records and dedicated to original musicals in development.
In this critical digital age that we now live in, concept albums of new musicals in development are the fastest and most lucrative ways that writers can now be noticed, supported, and advanced while their shows are in development.
Our first album, Willow, debuted at number 7 on the Billboard Cast Album charts and has since gone on to be streamed by millions on iTunes and Spotify.
With the success of Willow, we believe that Theater Barn Records is the future of musical theater development. We look forward to creating new traditions in our organization and the theater at large.
New York Theater Barn values musical theater as one of the world's supreme healing tools and creates space for artists to dream about how beautiful and extraordinary the world can be.
As an anti-racist nonprofit theater company that actively seeks out and curates important, culture-shifting stories from communities we need to hear from, our team continues to discuss ways for our organization to further develop anti-racist culture. Tonight's roundtable discussion is part of this work.
Tonight's prolific artists will take up space to collectively investigate, inspire, and ignite the future of the American theater.
New York Theater Barn is committed to creating a safe space to have uncomfortable conversations comfortably, and believes that there is a place for all of us at the table of the American theater.
And now, it is my pleasure to introduce to you tonight's moderator, Christine Toy Johnson.
Being here. I'm coming to you from New York City, the ancestral land of the Lenape people, and I'm so grateful to be able to sit in community with all of you, no matter where you are tonight. And at a time when we are all acutely aware of the various ways that some are trying to silence many of us, I'm so happy to be here to celebrate and talk to these phenomenal women of the theater. Thank you to everyone at New York Theater Barn for giving us the space to do that tonight. So, New York Theater Barn is dedicated to incubating culture-shifting musicals that shine a spotlight on underrepresented populations and that tackle every kind of subject matter imaginable. The company has lifted up hundreds of musicals created by historically marginalized people, including women, BIPOC, AAPI, and LGBTQIA+ artists. And they're actively expanding who has access to musical theater development opportunities. My own musical, Till Soon Anne, co-written with Bobby Cronin, was featured in New York Theater Barn's New Work series in 2018. And my new musical, Broken Ground, co-written with Jason Ma, a commission from Village Theater just outside of Seattle, was featured in New York Theater Barn's virtual New Work series in November. I am so very proud to support and to be supported by a company that is consciously inclusive, evolving, and listening, which is what tonight is all about. Please remember, if you want to join us after the panel for our intimate virtual cocktail party on Zoom, you can still become a VIP donor for just $100, which will give you access. You can just head to the ticket page and make your donation now and receive the link after our discussion. And if you've already purchased your cocktail party special ticket, the Zoom link for after the roundtable is in the email you received today. everyone in this discussion tonight does a lot of different things as artists and as humans. I think that since it's taken so long for us to achieve or endeavor to achieve parity in this industry, in the industry and voting rights and equal pay and representation in our government, etc., we've made it our business to develop all these amazing strategies to not only persevere, but excel on our own terms. And I'd love to talk to each one of these amazing women about how they are doing this. So without further ado, please welcome Ashley Blanchette, Sammy Canold, Melissa Errico, Ali B. Gorey, L. Morgan Lee, Eva Price, and Maria Torres. And our friend Ann Harada will come to us directly from set. She's working as she does, and she will join us hopefully mid-conversation. So hi, everyone. So happy to see you in the little squares. Everyone looks so beautiful. I'd love to start us off. We have a lot to talk about, but I'd love to start us off with hearing about the most recent project each one of you have been involved with that made you feel the most empowered. And let's start with Ashley.
Hi, Christine. It's so nice to see you. I'm a big fan. I am, and I'm so thrilled to be here with the rest of you guys as well. You guys are all powerhouses in your own right. To answer your question, I think the last production that I just did, which was Cinderella at Paper Mill with the most amazing Joanne Hunter, really meant a lot to me, especially because it was an interesting situation where it was immediately like, oh, she's Black Cinderella. And it was a whole thing where it was like, oh, how can I make sure that I pull off Black Cinderella enough? I really struggle to fit into different boxes perfectly. And I don't know that, I understand that I have like light skin privilege, and I didn't want little Black girls to come to the show and think like, oh, that's supposed to be Black Cinderella. She looks so much lighter under the lights. And, what does it mean to be Black? I'm struggling with all those things myself because I'm very proud in myself as a Black woman, but I feel like there's all these pressures. Sorry, I'm going on and on. But the point is that Mark Hobie, the artistic director of the show, made a point of coming up to me and telling me that he didn't think of me as Black Cinderella. He just thought that I walked in the door and was the perfect Cinderella. And even though I heard later from other people that had been auditioning that the only reason I got it was because they were trying to go diversity. And yes, I hear that so much of the time. It was so nice to get confirmation from the director that this wasn't something where we're going to think about this in terms of a quota, or you didn't get the job because we're going for Black Cinderella. You really just got the role because you were the best person for the part. And I think that moving forward in terms of diversity, I think that's a really important distinction to make. And it meant so much to me as a Black woman to know that I wasn't just being hired as Black Cinderella, but as Cinderella who happens to be Black.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Sammy.
So I'm going to talk about a project that's on a totally other end of the spectrum. I was so lucky this year to get to make a documentary in South Korea and in the UK about the survival of theater during the pandemic. And it was meaningful to me for a personal reason, but I think it's a personal reason that we all share, in that getting to be around theater and getting to be around an industry that was, leading the way in bringing theater back was just very inspiring to me. Particularly coming from New York and then landing in Korea and getting to sit in, a full capacity 2,000 seat theater was a very emotional, meaningful experience, and getting to document it. And, documentary film is such a, I think, empowering medium that I'd never worked in before. And very privileged to get to lead a story in a way that, you really are the author of the story when you're making a documentary. And that was, empowering on another level as well. So I loved it.
Thank you. Can't wait to see that. Melissa, come back.
Oh no, I was just plugging in.
How about you?
I'm terrific. Thank you.
Good.
So what? Well, it's interesting because I'm probably the oldest person here. So I have so many thoughts about empowerment, and I'm so excited actually to see where the future is going, because I definitely have my foot. Though I was only 18 when I started in Les Mis and 22 in My Fair Lady, I have one foot in the generation that we all look at, like Cy Coleman and people who are really gone, and a different generation where women were treated in a very particular manner in our business. So that's on the side. But just in brief, I would say the most empowering recent job is probably the one I'm currently in the middle of. I was given the opportunity in the summer to create a series to open the French Institute Alliance Française, which is a stage on 60th and Madison. It's a beautiful concert hall and a place where they show many movies. And they asked if I would help reopen the place for live streams. And now actually in May, there'll be an audience. But what I learned there is they're French, and all the women that run it, the whole place is run by women rather, and all the women that run it are divine. And it's a completely female leadership. And when I met them in the summer, I was amazed at the Zoom like this, where it was Marie-Monique in the corner, the president, an older French woman, and all her staff, all women. And when I came up with an idea for a concert series, they really empowered me, and they really let me write it and create it. And I did a live stream in October. I did one in January. I brought in a team. I did bring men into my team. But in general, to work with other women and to have them actually trust me entirely, and to see a wonderful organization like that, so effectively and magically, wonderfully run and collaboratively run, but to be empowered by other women was really a first. I've never really had an entire organization run by women, and I found it very exciting, and I still do. So it's a series called Love, Desire, and Mystery. It had to be something French. It had to have a philosophical thing to it. So we decided to look at aspects of love and how French and American culture look at love and desire. And now we'll get into film noir and mystery. And so it's a kind of concert and intellectual series that I invented, given the freedom that they gave me. And I don't think I could have done it if it were men asking me, what do you mean by that? That sounds odd, And it's extraordinary and weird and beautifully lit and wonderful, interesting music. But if it had been men, possibly, I would have felt nervous about trying something different. So I feel very empowered, and I think the French women are very empowering. They don't look at women of a certain age at all. They think you're smarter, sexier, more worldly. They think I'm the bee's knees over there, whereas maybe an American man might be like, oh, she's over 40. She's got 3 kids. She couldn't possibly have a sexy thought in her head. Never mind an intelligent one. So the French women are treating me with so much power, and I feel like I should be. I have so much information now and so much understanding about my life as a mother and my life as a woman and my life as another, member just of the human race. I feel for everything we're going through, but I'm so used to being treated like maybe I'm over, but not in France, not in Paris. So I think we could learn something from the French ladies. So that's my moment, but I could talk forever, but that's my thought for this moment.
That's incredible. And yes, I agree. I think that we have this habit in this country of thinking that women have some sort of expiration date, to which I say, right?
No offense. I've never felt better, but I don't know that everybody empowers a woman to embrace the information we gather through time.
Right.
So the French women are really freeing me, and I promise to pass that along.
That's amazing. Thank you. Allie, hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Great. I'd love to know what you're thinking about your most recent project that has made you feel really empowered.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited to share about this. Hi, everyone. I'm Allie B. Gorey, and I am an artist and a disability inclusion consultant. So I'm an actor who has low vision. I'm legally blind, but I also work with theaters and arts organizations and businesses to create more inclusive spaces. And right now, during this time, it's a little different and out of the musical theater realm, but I am working with an opera company on an opera based on Helen Keller's adult life. And it is 3 years away. And this opera is, we've in the readings and the workshops, half of the cast has been deaf, blind, hard of hearing, or low vision. There are members of the team that are disabled. It is really the most incredible example of what I like to call 360-degree disability inclusion, where it's not just about, oh, is our show going to be inclusive for the patrons? Is our show going to be inclusive or is one aspect, right? The design of the whole process, from the design of how rehearsals are run, to the script, to the plan of who's going to be able to access the show, to having a performance solely for deafblind people. It's just been wonderful to work on something like this 3 years ahead of time. So often theaters ask me at the start of a season, or maybe a few months in advance, hey, we have to be really inclusive and let's do it really, really quick. And it just doesn't work like that if you want to embed it into the culture of your organization. So that piece is just so exciting. And also, if you learn about Helen Keller's adult life, holy cow, it's just really empowering. So I'm feeling lit up by that piece at the moment.
Fantastic. There's so many things that you're talking about. They're all talking about. It's amazing. Elle Morgan.
Hi, Christine.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. I am Elle Morgan Lee. I am an actress and dabbling very lightly in writing. The most empowering piece I've been a part of recently has been one that I'm developing with Ars Nova right now, and it's a sort of response to Claire Booth Luce's play The Women. Something happened sort of over this pandemic that I was presented with an opportunity to be a part of a reading of the piece. And I kept sort of digging into it and just realizing that what it says at the end of the piece is not something that I feel like we need to be sort of putting out as being representative of women right now. This idea that, you know, this woman can pine after this man who cheated on her and you know, sort of screws over the mistress in an attempt to get back her husband so that she can, you know, be the woman she's meant to be with her man. It was just this image that I thought was really not representative of how much more we've learned since that original play. And so got together with Raja Feather Kelly, who I'd brought on to direct another piece, and sort of this one kind of spewed out of that one. And we got together 7 writers who are all women or people who have sort of lived under an experience that would be given to people born identified as female. And what's sort of come out of that has been really rewarding and like such a beautiful look at how so many different people view themselves and view others, and sort of unpacking some of the tropes that are within what is expected of being women in this society. And Christine Toy Johnson was one of the writers. Yeah. So just so excited for that piece. It's coming up in April. And yeah, that's my input for now.
I can't wait. It was just so much fun to write whatever I was thinking with your encouragement. Yes, can't wait. Eva, hi.
Hi. So good to see you. So good to see everybody. I'm answering this question with 2 parts. I'm going to connect 2 related events of feeling the most empowered. One is on December 5th, 2019, 4 months before the pandemic shut us all down, and that was the opening of Jagged Little Pill, a musical that I'm one of the lead producers of. It was an empowering moment, an empowering night, because of several years of hard work and several years of laboring and loving and feeling and healing and all the things that Alanis Morissette's lyrics tell us to do, and working with Diablo Cody and Diane Paulus and Alanis herself was an unbelievably empowering experience to, you know, when you're a producer, when you're a lead producer of a musical, You are a CEO, you are a captain, you are an admiral, you are, chief cook and bottle washer. You are sort of everything, big and small in terms of macro and micro. And to be in the room with an array of talent, in addition to my producing partners and our brilliant choreographer, Sidi Larbi-Cherkawi, and Tom Kitt, our music supervisor, it was just to watch and birth something so great from so much talent and so many talented women was an incredibly empowering experience. And then I'm going to connect that line to December 14th, 2020, deep into our pandemic, deep into our pain for the theater industry, deep into our sorrow, the start of a surge in New York again after suffering, so much at the start of the pandemic. And we gathered 40 people in person, our entire cast, or most of our entire cast, most of our band, some of our crew, and we put on a virtual concert of Jagged Little Pill. We did, 2/3 of the songs from our shows, a little bit of character development and scene work. We were somewhere in that space between the real characters and the actors who are them, telling their story, being themselves, communing together in the moment in the way that Jagged Little Pill as a show tells you to do and makes you want to do. And there I was in person with people in the middle of a crisis, feeling and healing and doing the great work of Alanis's lyrics and of Jagged Little Pill's story. And that was empowering is one word, inspiring, awe-inspiring, incredibly emotional, incredibly life-fulfilling and enriching, and healing, right? Because we've been suffering as theater artists for so long, for so many months, and to come together and put on a show for, I think 18,000 people ended up tuning into that live stream. Not quite Dua Lipa numbers, but we'll take it. And to hear from fans and to hear from the press and to hear from colleagues and industry members about what it meant to watch us all together. I sat in that room where it was obviously, no audience, but there I was with my mask, quite socially distant from the cameramen and the creative team watching. And we had 0 cases and everyone stayed healthy. And we had more swabs in our nose that week than anyone should ever have. We followed every protocol from SAG-AFTRA, and we brought a lot of joy and a lot of much needed inspiration to a lot of artists and theater enthusiasts and theater workers and theater fans. And there was no after party or morning ad meeting, but it certainly felt like an opening night. It had that joy of, similar to December 5th, 2019, 1 year earlier. But both those nights, even though they were incredibly different in both substance, form, and content, I can truly say were 2 of the most empowering evenings of my last 18 months to 2 years.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Last but not least, I'm going in alphabetical order, so it's nothing personal. But last but not least, Maria.
Hi. So for me, wow. First of all, the panel is unbelievable, and Eva Price, I know from On Your Feet, and I absolutely love her. And we connected great, and I saw exactly that she was headed in the direction that she's headed right now. But in December of 2020, I was actually working of 2019. I was working on several projects. I work in all mediums, so I was working on a new project called Who Runs the World, which is like an all-Black female show that's similar to Sex and the City. That's a comedy that's going to be coming out on Showtime. And then after that, I flew out to LA because I was developing a docuseries on the most amazing musicians behind the iconic music that we all know. I then flew to San Francisco to work with one of the girls that I mentored as a teen, who's now a teacher in San Francisco, and had asked me to come out there and speak and help her start an all-girl and all multicultural dance company. And so I went to work with her on that. When I came back, I fell ill. I went to check myself. And so I winded up being tested for COVID, and my husband soon after that. So from like the time that I got back, which was in February, to about April, I was sort of like under the weather. And during that time frame, all these projects that I already was having to go to the next level obviously got canceled because of the pandemic. Once I was able to get my strength back and to be able to really figure out what was going on, aside, from the fact of the fear of not knowing what this virus was and finally feeling better, then reality hit me in the face, because then we were dealing with the uprising that was starting to happen. And so for me, I'll never forget it. It was like, so May is when I started to feel really good. And I was being asked to do a lot of talk on Zoom to all these different organizations. And I was doing that just to get my spirits up. June 1st, my mother's birthday. She's gone now. She died in 2004, but June 1st, every year we do like a little party gathering. It was the most horrific day that was happening in New York City. And pretty much everything was going up in flames. And I'll never forget that I just, I was talking to my mom and I said, Mom, this is crazy. I feel like I'm flashing back to like when I was 5 years old. I need to do something. I can't just sit here at home and not do anything. I put it out there. And what ended up happening is that SDC called me to run for the executive board. I say, yes, I'll do it. Then I got called to work with a friend of mine who's running for Congress and be working at the civic level. I said, can you help us start, this grassroots organization that we're going to, I said, yes, absolutely. And then I stopped and I said, I'm going to now focus on how can I help my next generation of young kids. And a friend of mine called me to do a workshop for these young college students that just graduated, and they had to graduate virtually, and they were all really upset and depressed. And she said, can you give them some kind of a workshop and give them some inspiring words that would get them going? And I said, better yet, I said, why don't we just talk about how it is that they can take over, take this time to really develop themselves and to really do something that's positive during the time that when we are all looking at it dismally, let's prepare ourselves for what we can do when things get better. And so from that, what ended up happening is that I created a workshop called the Creative Artist Workshop, where I have 5 beautifully talented college graduates that are just brilliantly right now, as we speak, developing their works and how they're going to express themselves. And for me, that's been the most enlightening, and also an opportunity now to share the experiences of what I had to go through as a youngster, because this time frame right now, from the beginning of 2019, end of 2019 till I say, the summer, it was like flashing back to my childhood when I was like 5 years old, and my mother would bring the blinds down and put on music and dance, not knowing that what was happening outside was fights and battles outside, not knowing that because we were little. And then now being this adult person that is now talking to these youngsters and being able to share with them from a different perspective of what it's like to have to rise above your obstacles and your adversity and still create art. And that art is the most important thing that we can do to channel our spirit and our emotions so that we don't run wild and go crazy. And so that's one of the projects I'm doing now. And then now I'm directing the virtual celebration of Amas Musical Theater, which is a company that I'm a part of. And we're celebrating Rosetta Lenoir, who to me is an incredible woman that represents everything that we're talking about, because she really started that multicultural non-casting in the time frame when nobody was actually doing that, and a woman at that took that badge of honor during when the civil rights were happening, those wars, she was up there really representing. So I'm having the honor to be able to create a special piece and direct an entire evening dedicated to the great work that Amas Musical is doing. So that's what I've been doing this whole time.
Incredible. Thank you all so much. What amazing projects. We'll have to figure out a way to share information about them to everyone. I'll talk to Jen about that. So, one of the things that I'm hearing and one of the things I've been so moved by over this past year has been really how intrepid theater artists are. There is just no stopping us. We're not going to be told that we can't go ahead and continue telling stories. And I think that's amazing. Part of everything has been how to figure out how to balance everything. And so I want to talk to you about balance. I know that there's everything. There's there's family. There's just your schedules, where you're doing your advocacy, where you're donating your time, where you're creating your stories. So I'd love to talk about how people are doing that. And anyone want to start first?
I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
My first response to this is balance. Is that a thing? Because I do think that there is, if this were just a sort of regular time period, that would already be an obstacle. But given the world that we are living in right now in 2021, I think that any sort of usual places that I would go to for balance have been completely turned upside down.
Yeah.
So I am honestly constantly in search of finding ways to find some kind of balance, because as you said, the theater has still persisted in so many ways through a lot of this, and almost without the sort of, small print that we are in the middle of a pandemic in some ways. There's sort of the expectations of deadlines and getting things out, and like, can you do this? And can you do this? And can you do this? And it has, there are moments where I feel like I will never be able to live up to what is being expected. And in those same moments, I have to remind myself that we are in the middle of a pandemic, and it's okay to say no, and it's okay to not live up to those things today. So I think finding balance is certainly something that I will be listening to this group to see if there are tips.
Well, I think this pandemic has given us an opportunity to be. This is the most. I'm married for 35 years, right? This is the most time that I've spent with my husband. Literally in the last 2 years, it's been nonstop of working and being on that hamster wheel. Then, with this pandemic, what it has taught us, I think, is the opportunity of what quality time with family and with your spouses is important. That's what I've gained is that. What I've gained is that it's given me an opportunity to have great dinners, great time frame, being able to see my family, which I just came from Vegas last week, my husband, from seeing my dad and my sister, being able to look forward to seeing his family, something that we normally wouldn't do as artists because we're usually on some kind of a timeline. And one of the most important things that I'm teaching these group of kids is self-care, to check in with themselves first. Self-care, number one, no matter what happens. Listen to that quiet voice that sometimes is scary to stop, because you feel like if you don't stop, like if you're not moving, you're not doing, and it's okay. It's okay to really stop, and take that time and pause.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. Who else has a tip for Elle Morgan and the rest of us?
Can I also just really quickly throw in, Ashley, what you said in the beginning of this chat, really touched me, very deeply, specifically as a Black woman who would love to play Cinderella and only has a few more years to do it. You are so enough. You are so enough from a sister of, of a skin color situation. You are so more than enough. Please never doubt your Blackness, and never doubt the space that you're filling, because whether or not you realize that there were people in our community that saw that you were there and were all touched by that and saw the videos from Paper Mill and were very excited to see you there. I am one of them. So please know that you are enough. I'm sorry, back to I just had to throw that in.
I have a thought.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I love what you said, Maria. And I was thinking that, as the question was asked, I thought, well, what I've been learning a lot is about, to add self-care. And that's actually a year into the pandemic. What I got out of the having to stop. As you say, we're all in this hamster wheel. We're so used to working and performing. I travel all over the world, and I'm always leaving my kids and coming back. And I've found that concert work is a very an excellent way to have a family. And so I can work and come back and work and come back. And I don't have to, or do an off-Broadway show where I'm gone in the evenings, but 6 months and that's it, not a full year of their life, or a tour and then a year, which is often what I found my Broadway shows required. What I learned about finding balance in the pandemic and in the years, a few years before, but it really settled in during the pandemic, was the organizational and emotional organizational power of writing for yourself. To author your own life. Of course, Ava knows a lot about that with what she was, how she was describing, but everybody is in some way described taking some control over their authoring their own lives. And when I was asked about 4 years ago to write the column, they've now called it Scenes from an Acting Life, but the articles that I've been writing in the New York Times, you know, that are, what does it feel like to be on this side of the footlights? So the essays that I've written about trying to explain what it feels like from the inside, on this side of the footlights, what it feels like to be a woman. I've written about aging and gender, and I've written about one of my mentors. I've written about the experience of auditions. And I feel like writing itself, prior to the pandemic, but even more during the pandemic, really helped me to organize my emotions. And writing in the Times was obviously very empowering, very unexpected how that came about. And I've written one piece about pandemic performing in the arts in December, which was about a green screen musical and about what it feels like to be together in Zoom, but apart, and rehearse, but be on a green screen and creating this sense of togetherness, and sort of how that felt emotionally. So what I mean to say is that no matter what we're going through, whether it's the pandemic or otherwise, I think it's very empowering, centering, balancing to learn to write, and to learn to write your own projects. Cabaret was a life raft for me that became sort of an ocean liner. You know, it became an incredible ride around the world, and working on Sondheim's music, and then Michel Legrand. And I've been to Paris with orchestras and swing orchestras and the biggest theaters in Europe. It's beyond expectation. At the time, it seemed like, oh, she's doing cabaret, you know. But if you take control over what you're writing, and you really have a project with a story, and you really keep attaching yourself to who you are and what you want to say, even something that you didn't think was your stage, for example, can become a stage and can become relevant and really significant. So I think the idea of writing, looking at younger people, I was told forever that I was a good writer, and I didn't do it. I had boyfriends, I had friends, I used to write letters, emails. People used to say, you have got to become a writer. And I didn't think, I don't know, I thought it was someone else's thing to do. And when I started to write for the Times, that came out of, I guess, them listening to me. And they said, we think you could write. And what a generous thing to do. But writing itself, I feel, is really balancing. So whether you're writing to yourself, or writing your show, or writing about Helen Keller, or writing your vision, writing a production. Look what you're doing, Ava. It's incredible. Maria, everyone here. So anyway, the idea of being your own author, I think I'm a little late to it. Grateful that I've already had such a wonderful launch, and I hope to keep going, because I think it's a way to find meaning in midlife and mid-career. And maybe if you get started sooner, you can say it could really be defining for yourself. So
great.
Going off of creating sort of new roads for yourself and creating your own life, I feel like as far as balance goes, and also self-care and being not so hard on yourself, I found that for me, this pandemic has been a lot about just being quiet and being chill, and not necessarily, I can't say that I've had a lot of projects, you know. Only thing I've really done so far has been straight in this acting for the theater world. And so when that went away, that was like everything I ever did was gone. And not that that didn't happen to all of you, But I feel like I have had to come to terms with the fact that maybe for a little while, what I'm supposed to do is lean into being kinder to myself about not having a million projects. And if I do get quiet, then maybe at first I'll be like, all I want to do is sit on this couch and watch Netflix. And then maybe tomorrow I'll be like, all I can do today is play the guitar. Oh, but there's a little spark there that says like, that would be fun for me to do. And there's no real reason for me to play guitar. I'm never going to do it for anything. It's not going to make me any money, but it's enjoyable for me, right? And like, I think over time, I started getting little voices that weren't there before, like becoming a writer and saying, wow, this is such a part of me that I really found. I feel like something that we can learn from this pandemic is if you do get quiet, if you do take a second to not be so hard on yourself about not having a million projects, what little voices do come out? What little parts of you do you have that you might want to explore? And I think that's such a gift. And I think that we shouldn't minimalize the importance of calming down, being quiet, being not so hard on yourself, being not so focused, especially as women who I believe you all are such go-getters and so amazing that we all must be women that are like, I'm going to go, I'm going to work, I'm going to outwork everybody in the room, and I'm going to get all these million things. It's been really hard for me to just sit down, do nothing, and figure out what my heart thinks would be fun today, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ashley, I love that. Because when I think about self-care and I think about balance, which also made me laugh out loud. One thing that's really been helpful for me, and it's so simple, is this idea of daily, taking time to tune in with your senses. Like self-care, I think for a lot of us artists, and when we live in New York and we've got a million things going on and a million appointments in a day, we're just so disconnected from like, what do I smell? What do I taste? What do I touch? What do I see? Like, what am I feeling inside? We ignore that. And so I think this time has given us a minute, and I agree. I've felt very similar to you, Ashley, just slowing the heck down and pausing and not having to schedule my self-care into it, but just taking little moments each day to check in with myself and to be really aware of what's around me. And it's so, I think it can be such a simple idea. It doesn't have to be so scary to slow down.
Yes. Anybody else have a thought or comment, Sammy or Eva?
I'll just add in this one saying that someone said to me at the top of the pandemic, which is ringing true with everything Ali said. Ashley, you have spoken so many truths to me tonight. I have loved everything you have said. And that saying that someone imparted to me was just ride the roller coaster. Some days you will be up and some days you will be down. And some days you will be screaming. And some days your stomach will drop. And some days you will be still. But just ride the roller coaster. And it was the best advice for this pandemic for me, because there are absolutely days when you are up and it is great. And sure, we did 7 Zooms today and didn't have lunch, but we were cooking and things were happening. And then the next day, everything fell apart. And I can't believe my show's been closed for 8 months or 10 months. And no, this isn't happening. And oh my God, we just postponed Broadway reopening again. And oh my God, we just rebooked that tour for the 5th time. And, my artists are dying inside and I don't know how to help them right now. It's just then the news is terrible. It's like, then I'm down. And rather than feeling bad about myself being down, or how do I lift myself back up and how do I pretend I'm fine? It's like, no, I'm going to ride the roller coaster. Today's a down day. And tomorrow we might be back up. And so that's just a great piece of advice that I've used wholeheartedly throughout this pandemic, and I am absolutely going to be using for the rest of my life. And I impart that to anyone else who might need it.
I teach that to my kids all the time, that they have to learn to enjoy that things are not enjoy that they're out of control, but unpredictability, and not, you don't have to go to bed having everything set. Nothing has to be set, and learn to surf. I'm always saying to them, so that so flexibility becomes the asset of the girls in this house. I have 3 daughters, and I always say that being flexible, is their greatest strength that they can have, so I try to get perfectionism and drive and too much of that, out, and just the idea that things are in process, in flow, that are, so that they go to bed and they feel like, okay, so today was a day I didn't really resolve anything. That's cool. And then they can sleep, because you need to sleep, and when you have I have 3 preteen daughters, 12, 12, and 14. So, teaching them just what you were saying, and Ashley, just to stay relaxed and flexible, not relaxed as much as flexible, so that uncertainty is something you're not afraid of.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Sammy.
Yes, I've procrastinated on answering because I'm so horrifically bad at balance. And I think that the pandemic has made me worse, if I'm being honest. And I think that part of that is because, like, part of the way that I personally found balance pre-pandemic was going to the theater, that it was like a way for, even though it was work related, it was a way for me to like shut off and like be immersed in a world. And I think the absence of that, my opiate has been like working, but not really sure what I'm working towards, just working for the sake of like, I should read this book or I should do this thing. And I don't think that's necessarily been a healthy approach to the pandemic. So I'm learning from my amazing fellow panelists about how to do that going forward. And the one thing I have achieved is I now watch TV. So that's a start.
That's great. That's great.
That's all part of the roller coaster, girl.
That's
it's
right.
That's right. Work. It's part of the roller coaster.
It's industry research.
Yeah.
Totally. The crown.
I love that industry research. I'm going to keep that one.
That's right.
I'm just researching tonight.
I trick myself.
I want to check in with Jen backstage to see if we should do some of our donor acknowledgements now. Or should I go on to our next question? There's a plane going on somewhere. We can wait. Okay, we can wait. So I want to talk to you about community. So, for so many of us, I know that for me personally, my community has really been so important to as part of my survival mechanisms over the past year, and especially certainly in the last week. My Asian American communities come together, and we've tried our best to uplift each other and figure out our way forward. And I love this gathering tonight because we as women are uplifting each other, and it's so important. And I want to know if there are other ways that you have found to uplift other women, or your thoughts about that.
We have to. I think every single person on this panel would actually say we just have to. We just have to make that a priority. We just have to do it. We have to find ways to do it. There's a thought sometimes in hiring practices and in casting practices. Well, we looked and they weren't there. We tried. I hired, and the answer is no. Then you keep looking. Then you try harder. Then you work harder. Then you make more of an effort. Then you spend more money. You spend more energy, and you just keep looking to support and lift women and level forward, level it up, and do what you can do to equalize the disparity and the dysfunction and the lack of diversity and representation in all of our verticals, right? We've got writers here, we've got actors here, producers, activists, choreographers. Like, it's up to us to bring people up into our vertical and do what we do. I mean, Allie, the fact that you exist is like a joy and a dream for the theater community, like someone who specializes in wanting to create accessibility. And Ashley, everything you've been saying since the start, I mean, I think a lot about when we cast Ali Stroker in Oklahoma, and someone was like, oh, that was great. Ellie uses a wheelchair and how excited. And I was like, we cast Ellie Stroker because she was the best freaking person who walked in that door and did the show. Like nothing, full stop, nothing else to discuss. Like, yes, we then had to create an accessible backstage for this human being because Broadway theaters are antiquated and have not done that yet, and is like mind blowing. But you know what? Like, all right, the next time there's a show at Circle in the Square that has a wheelchair user in the company and not just in the audience, everyone's life is going to be easier. And if that's my gift to level for the accessibility community, great. These are just the things we have to do. We have to do it every day with intention and with kindness and with generosity. And we have to just keep working hard and keep doing it and not take no for an answer.
And writing on that, it has to like actually be done, because I feel like we're in a time where so many people are talking about it being done and hashtagging it and, doing searches for, and these communities that are underrepresented have been out here, are out here. I'm a Black trans woman. If somebody is looking for trans people, it's really not that difficult to find us. We all have countless names in our own phone books that we can throw out to people. So I feel like it's one of those things where people I'm just so regularly seeing, and this, I will say this pandemic has really solidified this idea that we're in a position to be having conversations. And it seems like throughout this pandemic, the conversations have felt very binary in that they seem to only be about Black and white. And I do think that there's so many intersections and groups within those things, as well as others, that are really not being heard and not being a part of the conversation actively. We see, even as small as, I'm really riding on, but we see cast lists of things being announced. We see all these things popping up of projects, and we see a few Black faces in the mix, but we don't see people who are not cis, or people who are, not 25, or people who are not very thin, or people. It's like there's so many other intersections that actually really need to be discussed. And this is the moment, if we have this break in time, this is the time for us actually to be talking about this, and for that talk to be heard, and for the answer to that to be specifically in action and not just words.
Yeah,
Oh
and I want to, amen. I want to write on that, because for me, like my whole life is a testament to that. I mean, I was the girl that was told no my entire life, in everything, being a dancer, just not being able to fit a box, whether I was Latina or Black or white, because, obviously when you look at me, you can't tell what I am. And even when I was going out to auditions, I was not allowed to even step into that place of allowing to show my talent, because I was already typed out. So fighting to get in the door has always been something that that was always the thing. Like for me, when the door was shut, I lifted that window and I stepped through. And I said, once I get in there, I'm going to make a difference. In my whole entire, life, that's all I've done. And so I don't even know what it's like to just have a conversation without really being able to be in the room creating real change as a dancer, as a choreographer, as an activist, in every single job Eva even knows. I mean, I trained the entire staff, the entire cast at On Your Feet, and I took on an associate choreographer credit when my credits were I was already directing, I was already a choreographer, I was already producing, I was, an activist creating all these things. It wasn't about ego, it was about making a difference. Where I knew that I can create and move that needle forward. And I think that is important, that those conversations turn into real action steps, which is why during the pandemic, as soon as I was able to feel better, I had to do something from my home to continue that needle going forward, so that we don't go back. We can't go back to what it was, being behind closed doors, fighting to get people in the door. No, this time it's about having the open conversations. And like Eva said, creating accessibility, and making sure that when we're in that casting room, that behind the table, everybody that's there should be educated enough to be able to hire the person because they deserve it, not because they're looking for a type. Because God knows I had to break those molds. Just Leslie, just like you, like Ashley, just like you. I mean, I remember in Swing when, you know, William Ivy Long looked at me and he said, girl, what am I going to do with this body? I said, well, I'm Marilyn Monroe, baby. Find me somebody that can make me my outfits, you know, for this body, because it's not going to change. And then they hired a Latina seamstress to come in and create my outfits, you know, because I just couldn't fit into a size 2. So I think, to me, this is the perfect time for all of us, you know, to uplift each other as women, but more importantly, to really make it happen when we come back, to see those things really coming into the room, as opposed to us just having the conversation, which I know that a lot of changes are coming, but it's just wonderful because everybody here is talking the talk and walking the walk, which I'm so proud of being a part of this group.
And that speaks directly to, I'm sorry, that speaks directly to the balance thing. It's that many of us are actually not, the part of the reason my balance is so unhinged is because I don't feel comfortable just allowing myself to just have a day to breathe, because everything that I'm a part of is really me trying to create more space for people, period, for women, for Black women, for trans women, for women who are not a size 2. It's like the responsibility is very heavy, and I feel it. So, and I want to be someone that is a part of helping to make that space. So it's like the balance is difficult to find, because in that you have to be able to take care of yourself. But it's so often that I'll see a moment where, for instance, I might be asked to do something, and then if I'm not able to do it, I don't see a trans name there. I don't see a Black name there. It's like I see sort of another sort of woman that we've seen a lot of in that space. And that's wonderful for that actress, but it doesn't help in that forward movement that like I would like to be actively a part of.
Ooh, this is, yes. It is so hard to rest when you don't see the change unless you're there. I feel that in my bones. And one thing that's really been kind of bubbling up as we've been talking is, you know, when I was first getting to the city and connecting with the disabled community in New York, I would always hear the phrase, you know, nothing about us without us. But honestly, it's 2021 and it's nothing without us. Like, that's what the phrase is. It's nothing without us. And it applies to, it's not just the disability community, it's every community. And it is going to take folks who are not members of those communities to look at the tables that they are around and saying, whoa, this isn't it. Like, this isn't it. And that's what it's really going to take when we're coming back. And it's so important to not only, you know, for that to be our voice. All the women on this panel, obviously, we're doing a lot of that, but it's important for our friends and the folks in our circles and our communities of women that lift us up to be able to step into that space and look around those tables too and speak up.
And it's so nice to hear all you guys talking about this in terms of, I'm sorry, Sammy, I'll go really fast. I feel like hearing you guys all say this is like making me so emotional, because I'll be completely honest with you. I've been like on the cusp lately, reflecting back on what Broadway means and what it actually has to say, and whether or not I feel like it actually has potential. And I feel like people talk about stuff when it's topical. Like right now, it's Stop Asian Hate. And a few months ago, it was Black people. But I just put something up, I'll be completely honest, about Mrs. Doubtfire. It was a post where I was just like, hey guys, are we really still going to be laughing at men in dresses? Is that something we're doing? And crickets, you know what I mean? Because that's not the thing that's popular right now. We're not talking about transgender rights right now. So to me, there's a feeling of like, how are we going to get this done? If it's just the topical moments when people want to fill their Instagram feeds with, I'm on board with this because it's already a popular thing to talk about and I'm on the end of this train, as opposed to, this is not necessarily something that everybody understands quite yet, but we as artists need to be in the forefront of this, and we need to make art specifically because we have a why, specifically because we have something we want to push the ball forward. And so for me, it's like, okay, what are we going to do as artists? What are we going to do specifically for me? In my mind, I'm like, what is Broadway going to do so that everything that gets put up on Broadway is something where everyone has sat in a room and been like, why are we making this piece? What does it say? What does it say when we put a man in a dress and we laugh at him? And why are we doing that? And what is the point? Is it just to make some money off of a 90s movie? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel to me like those discussions are necessarily being had. And this is a super honest and like intense conversation for me to have, but it's been really, really weighing on me during this moment. So to be in a community, C word, of women right now that are quoting back to me that you all are thinking of these things too. And it's not just crickets that I'm putting out there and saying I should take this off because I don't want to offend anybody. But, you know, it's so nice to hear that there even is a room where people are saying we should all be in the room, because that's not been my experience necessarily.
And even with Doubtfire, really quickly, do we know that they've done the work to not villainize the wife? This is also a theme in that story that is not being discussed. I mean, or perhaps it has been discussed at some point in the rehearsal process, but is the wife being turned into the villain, this woman who is just trying to take care of her children? And I feel like that's a moment that there are multiple conversations that if those groups are not being represented behind the table, then it's difficult to have those conversations. Can you tell this story in a way that does not offend all of these groups? I don't know. I think it's a very fine line, but you do need to be in communication with those groups in order to make sure that that's actually a possibility.
Sammy, I want to give you a chance to weigh in.
I'll just echo what Ashley's saying in terms of I think we have to hold each other accountable for bringing these conversations into the room and not forgetting that the past year has happened. You know, when we go back into rooms, are already going back into rooms already, you know, on Zoom, everything, you know, how we're having conversations. And I particularly just want to say from you know, personal experience, I'm a director and I'm, you know, relatively new to directing. And I think I was shocked when I started directing with the amount of power that is given to a director, not only in terms of how a room is populated, but also how the culture of the room is set. And that could be, you know, a rehearsal room, but also meetings, anything, you know, and that on any given large musical, you know, I'm part of the hiring process for 80 to 90 people. And I think that was astounding to me when I realized it, because of course there are like wonderful, exciting benefits that go along with being a director, but with that privilege comes so much responsibility. And I think what I say by that is, you know, I think we have to hold our directors, myself included, accountable for the way that they're running their rooms, because in choosing to be directors, we have chosen to say, I think I know how to run this room. I think I know how to be the person who's partly in charge of hiring 80 to 90 people. You know, we can't say, oh, that was that person, because I've been in a situation where if I say to a producer, to an institution, my priority is making sure that this costume is red, they listen, because that's the way that the American theater works. And so I think that with that responsibility has to, you know, come responsibility.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I can share with you, Sammy, is the good thing about it is that SDC, what we're doing is creating a best practices handbook, so that there is a guide for the next generation of directors and choreographers that are coming out there to be aware of all of these things that we're talking about. Because I mean, I can't discuss all of it, but I do know that a lot of the things that what Ashley brought up and Leslie Morgan,
L. Morgan
brought up, and even what Sammy brought up. I mean, all of those things were the reasons why I joined all these different committees. You know, the first thing they said, we want you to run. I ran and I got elected, but then I was on the bylaws committee because I wanted to ensure that we would get the right information of imbalance between what is equitable for directors and choreographers. Then going on the best practices, where we're talking about equity, diversity, and inclusion, but then just having a tool of how you can think, as opposed to just having to figure it out by yourself. No, I mean, that's the good thing about what's come out of this time frame, that I do know the union is really taking a real good look and coming up with some great things that are going to help. They're going to help to move that needle forward, you know?
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is an amazing conversation. Of course, we could talk about this for hours and hours, but we are going to move to our donor acknowledgement section. We want to acknowledge some of our high-level donors, and Jen has given us our shout outs in the chat. So Ashley, do you want to take it away?
Oh my God. Christina, I'm so happy that you said that because I have been waiting. You said it could wait. And now I finally get to open these cookies.
Well, first, before you do that, Ashley, they're in the chat. There are names of our high-level donors that, sorry, you have to wait a few more minutes before you
It's hard, Ashley, I know.
Okay. All right. Before I do that, I do want to acknowledge and thank Suzanne Bachner, Caitlin Bear, and Deborah Barrera for all your support and, for these cookies.
Sammy, you have some people to thank.
Okay. I want to thank Deborah Barsha, Michelle Browerman, and Ann Dalen.
And I would like to thank Nancy Gibbs, Kathy Evans, Lily Fan, and Sally Horchow.
And I would like to thank Jane Goldman, Robin Gorman-Newman, and Antonia Casper.
And I want to thank Grace Kosaka, Amy Langer, Judy Losef, and Jason Ma.
So many wonderful people. I'm thanking Anne McNamee. I'm thanking Marcia Norman. Thank you, Monica Patton. And thank you, Sheila Ray.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we have...
Yeah, and I'm thanking Adina Schechter, Adam Ray Siegel, Deborah Stavis, and Elizabeth Williams.
Thank you. And again, please remember, if you want to join us after for our intimate virtual cocktail party on Zoom, you can still become a VIP donor for just $100. Head to our ticket page, make your donation, receive the link. And again, if you've already purchased your cocktail party special ticket, the Zoom link for the after party is in the email you received this morning. Now we're going to get to the cookies. We want to acknowledge our event partners. We're going to start with, Victoria covered this in the beginning. Broadway Wine Club, use the code BARNWINE for discounts that support the New York Theater Barn. Little Gray Bakery is a female-owned and operated bakery committed to advocating for systemic change and amplifying the voices of the silenced. And if you mention New York Theater Barn when checking out, our nonprofit will receive 10% of the proceeds. And I believe that many of us received very delicious cookies. All right, Ashley, you want to? Who else wants to eat cookies on the air?
I've already had one of each.
Okay.
Yeah, they were terrific. Did you get the dark chocolate one on the left and then the cinnamon kind of sugary ones on the right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
salted caramel. Yeah. And there's like a little line of salted caramel in the middle of the snickerdoodle.
Yes.
That's
I haven't had that one yet.
There's something in there.
You can taste the butter.
You can, yes, hear that one.
Boy.
Okay.
So I'm really not going to be a size 2. So, great.
Oh, they're so soft. Oh my God.
Okay. We also have received support from Little Words Project, which encourages women to both be kind to themselves and to others. Every bracelet is created with an inspirational word meant to inspire the wearer for as long as they need it. Mine says badass and girl power, and then pass it on to someone who needs that bit of inspiration more. There's a code inscribed in each tag, which can be used to track the journey of the bracelet on the Little Words Project app or website. And you can wear your words right on your wrist with pride and share your story with those around you. We have a bunch of them. Yes, they're beautiful.
Yes, they're gorgeous.
Yes.
They're fun.
And
and see
yeah. Yeah, beautiful. And Surreal Skincare creates highly effective, 100% natural skincare for acne and aging skin. Using the best ingredients sourced from around the world, many extracted from raw materials right there in their own lab. And Surreal Skincare's formulations are strong, hard-hitting, and work quickly on your skin.
My God. I love this one. And you know what the best part of it is? When you open up the bar, you get this. Can you see this?
It's like a little present within a present.
Oh my goodness. That is so cool.
That's amazing. So I happen to be in Los Angeles right now, as you can tell from the sunlight and my hair, which has gotten very blonde. I know you're all confused, as am I. So I have to say, having some anti-puff dark circles moisturizer and some destroyer of wrinkles, creator of collagen, queen of elasticity, cheat death, this one's called. I am a happy, happy girl. So thank you, Surreal Skincare.
Thank you all for helping us honor our event sponsors and our donors. I want to move into another question about how we advocate for ourselves, and that's folding into this is what I'm really wondering about is what equality looks like to you, what you wish it would look like, and how you each advocate for yourselves to move the needle forward. Hi, doggy.
Oh, cute.
All right, that's my monster.
Everyone's welcome. So anybody want to speak about advocating for yourselves, whether it's about equality and or when you find yourself in a tough situation and you need to figure out how to navigate that?
I'll start.
Yeah.
I'll let the producer advocate for a minute. It's hard. It's really, really hard. Even when you're in charge, it's hard. And I often find I'm in a room with a lot of men. I'm in a room with a lot of men that are a lot older than me and often more experienced. And it's very easy to not advocate for yourself, actually, but to choose a path of least resistance or make people happy or make people like you. So I think maybe one tool, and I think we're all talking about this actually, and we're all doing it, is finding a way to advocate for those under us, to advocate for others, which in turn can help us advocate for ourselves. Sometimes that's actually an easier way, like looking out for other people makes you seem a little more magnanimous than looking out for yourself. That's a cheat, right? Like, I think we'd like to say, just do it, you can do it. But I'm trying to impart some actually leadership wisdom here because it is really hard. And I also find that, like, if you can be very truthful in your advocacy, very vulnerable in it, like actually just state the why, the must, with open heart and a great deal of honesty, people listen, right? Like they actually do. It's really hard to put up a wall and to say no to someone who is heart open and heartfelt about their needs and really speaking for themselves. As a leader, I'll admit to it, when others need to advocate for themselves and they just come forth and say, this is what I need and this is how I need it and this is what I need y'all to do. It's really hard to say no to that. It's really hard to not take that on and do what's best. So I think if we're looking for tips here, I would say, certainly advocate for others, which in turn can help advocate for yourself, but also just speak honestly and with vulnerability. And I think you will find that your advocacy will be met and heard.
Thank you for putting it that way. Thank you for putting it that way, Eva. I hearing that also sort of reminds me a little bit of what Maria was saying earlier about this sort of best practices situation that you all are building for, and you specifically said for the next generation of directors. And I can't help but worry that I'm not as concerned about the next set of generation because the younger generation coming up now is so much more forward thinking than the ones prior. I feel like it's the job of the director to really set the room's sort of environment, so that people do feel free to advocate for themselves or advocate for others. So my concern inside of that is hoping that you all can find a way to really start to hold these directors who are part of the boys club right now more accountable, because I feel like a lot of the rooms that we are encountering today and will be encountering for the next few years are going to be led by those people who are already at the top of the game, and it's finding a way to get them to set the rooms straight so that the generations behind them have examples to follow. And like the problem with the fear in advocating period is, especially for actresses, is sort of knowing that you are then seen somehow as, you don't want to be viewed as difficult. And if you're a Black woman in particular, you don't want to be viewed as aggressive, or you don't want to be viewed as angry. And I want to believe that coming with that open heart and just being very upfront about how you feel and setting a reputation for yourself that is one of speaking from light and love will help you in that way. But it is still very frightening.
Well, I mean, and the thing is too, is that what's happening is that it's not just for the next generation. What the conversations are happening with the top of the pool chain that are the directors and choreographers, right? That's one thing. But personally for me, I can tell you that every single job in every medium, I stood up for myself. Because being a person of color, being someone that was not going to be treated in the same way and fashion as my other, creative team members, I had to stand up. And there was some times that I had to walk away from jobs because I prefer to walk away with integrity rather than be able to succumb to what I was being subjected to, And so there's two sides of the coin, meaning all of us right now in this panel, we've got El Morgan and Ashley and myself, that we're speaking from a different place, and also Christine Toy, right? We're living from the inside out, and then we have the rest of them that are from the outside looking in. And there's has to be the middle ground, which is what we're talking about. And I think that what happens is that with the women, even like Eva, I remember meeting Eva and just having great conversations with her. And I bring her up because the conversations that she would say, she's now, back then, of what she was planning to do, she's now doing it in a big way. And, and I sent her a text in the middle of the Tonys, and I'm like, congratulations! Because, it's the wins and being able to support. Diane Paulus is someone that, right out of the gate, when I started as a choreographer, I took the hardest route. I didn't want to do a reimagined show. I wanted to do something completely out of the box. And I worked with Jordan Roth, Diane Paulus, and Randy Weiner. Had no idea what we were going to do. We did, in terms of, for me, what I wanted to, what I was going to be able to be given the freedom of doing, and then being embraced by them and allowing me to have the freedom to do that. And then going from that experience to the next job, being put in a box and having to say, whoa, wait a minute. I just went from this experience to this. What do I do now? And so for me, it was constantly navigating, trying to advocate for myself as well as for others, for what I feel is equitable and justice. And I think now it's not just about us, but it's also a conversation for all. Because on both sides of the coin, we have to be able to understand each other. You can't, you don't know what it's like to walk in our shoes, but you must understand what it is to walk in our shoes. And the same way, we can't shame them either, because that's not going to help either, for not knowing. Exactly. And I think that's the balance that I talk about. The conversations have to be had. They have to be uncomfortable. Like even with the virtual, I mean, I have to tell you a couple of conversations that I had to say, well, of course you're going to feel uncomfortable because you didn't walk in that lady's shoes. So therefore, that's good, because if you're feeling that, then that's a great way with being able to portray something without having to punch it and through and make that person feel shame, right? Through our art, we can do a lot. But I think behind the scenes, we're definitely having the conversation. I am so confident and I am so proud of the work that is being done right now. And it's going to take some time, but I think that together, we're going to get there. We really are.
Yes. Sammy,
think that
Sammy,
they-
I want to give. Sammy was trying to jump in earlier, and I just want to give you a little bit of room.
Sure. Well, I just what Eva said really resonated with me because I've been the beneficiary of the generation above me setting me up to succeed, and I think that is such a gift. And I have on so many occasions been in rooms where an artistic director or producer will set the room by, at the very beginning of a process, telling a company, trust this person. And I think that can make a cataclysmic difference in a process. And I think that, as a young white woman of the generation that I'm of, I have not faced the obstacles that the generation above me or my colleagues of color or other colleagues have faced. But I will say, there's one example that stands out to me, when we talk about allyship, and that I was working on a production where I was working with a male production manager who liked to, talk over women all the time. I don't know if he realized he was doing it, but it was very hard to get a word in edgewise. And it's very difficult when you're trying to, have conversations about technical aspects of a show. And my set designer is my very close colleague, Jason Sherwood, who is, 6 foot something, and very, very intimidating when he walks into a room. We were in this we were in a conversation about an element of the show, and Jason and this production manager was just sort of overpowering the conversation, and it had got to a point where it was just impossible to be having the conversation. And Jason just held up his hand like this to the production manager, and then pointed his other hand to me. And and that was all he did. He didn't say anything. He didn't take the floor himself, but it caused, the production manager to stop talking. And then I started talking, and it was such a simple thing, but it was instructive to me about how, depending on the power, or privilege that we bring into a room, we have the ability to shift conversations that are not going the way they should. And I found it inspiring that he used his privilege not to take up space, but to shift space to the person who needed to be talking at the time.
Thank you so much. We're getting close to the end, and I know Ashley, you wanted to say something. So,
can I go really fast?
Yes, please.
I just wanted to say that in terms of being afraid to say something, I think that that's well-founded. I think that as women and as a black woman, I'll speak personally, people do kind of jump to the conclusion of like, why are you speaking? What do you have to say? Why you're probably going to be angry, and you're short. So if you're short, you really shouldn't have any, like, what do you have to say to me? Who knows? Anyway, I have had situations where I have advocated for other people. In one of the last shows I was in, the black woman wasn't being paid and the white man was being paid. Her counterpart was being paid. And I went to bat for her getting paid. And I believe that I ended up being punished for being part of the troublemaker team that fought for that. But then I left that behind and found the right team for me. And I think that if you do stay true to who you are, somebody may find you difficult. Somebody may, as in my case, call you out of the audience and tell you that you need to stop asking questions. You need to stop talking so much because people start to look at you as this troublemaker person. I got plenty of stop talking down, stop fighting for other people, stop being such a troublemaker. But then on my next project, everything that I had to offer was looked at as a good thing. And I realized that I can't take it personally when other people are threatened by me staying true to me and saying, this person needs to be heard, this person needs to be paid. And I'm not doing it because I'm hoping that that director thinks of me as the most amazing person. And if they don't, that's up to them. But I'm really hoping that by staying true to that my people will find me, that you'll end up at New York Theater Barn where people actually want to hear what you have to say, even if what you have to say is threatening. So I just think stay true to yourself and understand that when you do pave the way for new people, that you are taking a risk, but I think that risk is going to pay off and put you in the rooms that you want to be in.
Thank you so much. We're out of time, but we do have a cameo special appearance by someone who just arrived from set. Ann Harada, you want to just say hello?
Hi. I'm sorry, guys. You can see I'm sort of dripping wet from the rain. I'm so sorry. I wish I could have heard more of that conversation because the little bit I heard was fantastic. I totally second that emotion about sticking up for yourself and for other people. I think there's something really strong about that because we have to be each other's sisters. There's no alternative right now.
That's right. Thank you.
I was going to repeat that. Hi, Anne. It's good to see you.
Hi.
Something that I feel very strongly about is try to, if we could, somehow develop more of a mentorship sort of process. I mean, I got a note today on Facebook from Betty Buckley. I'm always getting little notes from different women who sing and so on, but we really have no a way that we pass information from one generation to another, or between us. People who know so much, how do they reach out to other people? I don't feel like there's I wish there was a way to actually be mentors so that we could be sisters, as you said. That, Anne, it just made me think of it. And I have 3 daughters in my home. I'm raising 3 teen girls. And I think there's a kind of an assumption, if there is also in the workplace, there's an assumption that once you're a mother, you're kind of done, or that maybe your mother isn't as serious or isn't as passionate about her work if she went off and had a family, So I work in my own house to advocate for myself as a gypsy, as an artist. I'm like, wait a minute, Anne remembers me. I mean, this was my hardcore thing. Okay, I'm a mom, but I have to model a woman fulfilled for the girls, or then what? They have to have that model. If they see I gave it up. My mom was a Broadway something. I remember, she starred in all these things and then she quit. I don't want that. I don't want that, but that's no good for women either. So the sister idea just made me think of that, Anne and all the women that I've known from our generation and on. If there's a way too that we could mentor each other, if that's something we could develop, I'd sure like to help.
I want to learn from you, Melissa.
Pass it down.
Thank you so much, everyone. We have to wrap up. I'm sorry. We could talk for hours and hours. I'm so grateful to all of you for your generosity and your insight. What a fantastic sisterhood. And so thank you. And thank you, New York Theater Barn, for producing this event, and Associate Artistic Director Jen Sandler for serving as our event producer and backstage manager tonight. And of course, thank you to you, our audience, for joining us, for supporting the development of original musicals and important conversations like the one we've had tonight. Thank you so much for your generous contributions to tonight's presentation. And if you'd like to increase your donation, there's still time. You could do that at nytheaterbarn.org/give. Patrons and friends who made a contribution of $100 or more can now join us in the Zoom after party. And with that, thank you so much and good night.